Okay, hello, listeners. Hello, hope you're tuning in. This evening, I have two strong men. I'm losing half of my face. I don't know what's going on here. So I'll tilt the screen like that. I have two strong men. We are privileged. We are privileged to have two men. You'll understand why I keep emphasizing. Why do I keep losing half my face? Bear with me. Okay, yeah, that's better. Can you still hear me, gentlemen?
Yeah,
we can.
Okay, all right, okay. So I'll start again. Good evening, listeners. This evening, I'm very excited. We are discussing a very important and sensitive subject. And I am honored and privileged to have two gentlemen. I am honored and I'm exceptionally pleased that both are gentlemen. We are discussing domestic violence. And domestic violence is not just hearsay, but the statistics says majority of the perpetrators are men. And the victims, the numbers are women. Majority are women. Hence my excitement at having two gentlemen here discussing domestic violence. So without wasting time, I'll get the gentlemen to introduce themselves and say a brief one or two about who they are, what they do. So Peter Kane, I will start with you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Nana, for having me. My name is Peter Kinofori. I am a lawyer. I am also a mental health practitioner and a relationship expert, a role that I have been playing for at least the past 12 years. I have particular interest in domestic abuse for the simple reason that there are not many men in there. So I think it's a space to get in, for one. But also, I have been doing a lot of work with victims of domestic abuse, where I support women in a refuge home, women that have gone through domestic violence in a refuge home. And it did come to life really difficult when the lockdown came last year. I think it became a topic that I took to heart. Considering the number of people that had to leave their home to come into their refuge home. It became, we started to think that it's not something that we should be taking for granted anymore, and we need to begin to speak out. So that is where my interest is coming from.
Okay, thank you, Peter Kane. Nabenyi, you are not new, but we'll ask you to introduce yourself again.
Hi, my name is Nenebe Anamo Mesa. I'm a life coach and then a behavior change specialist. I support people to make integrity-based decisions on depression, midlife crisis, and sexuality. So I've been supporting people, especially men and youth, who are going through addiction, depression, and having issues with sexuality in their relationships. That's a bit about me.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. So I'll go straight to the question. What is domestic violence? I'll direct that question to you, Peter Kane. What is domestic violence?
Right. When we say domestic violence, a lot of people automatically begin to think that it is physical violence that happen to people within our home. Mm-hmm. And also, a lot of people also think that it is violence that exists between partners, a husband and wife, boy, girlfriend. But when you use the word domestic violence, it is bigger than that. Any form of violence that happens within our home, within the 4 blocks or the 4 walls of our home, is classified as a domestic violence. So violence towards our children, mm-hmm. violence towards our house helps, violence towards our partners, and all sort of violence that happen within the people living within the close proximity of us comes under the realms of domestic violence. And when we say violence, one may ask, what is violence? Is it only physical? No. Violence comes in so many ways, and the people can be violated emotionally, physically, psychologically. The sexual violence, which in our part of the world is hidden. We don't even talk about it, especially if you are married. So there's sexual violence. Also, it's not a violence or abuse, but there is financial abuse, which also comes under violence within our homes. So when we say violence, domestic violence, it encapsulates a whole lot of things that goes on within the four walls of our home.
Okay, so it encapsulates a whole lot of things that goes on within the four walls of our home. It's about violating either physically, emotionally, psychologically. Now, Benny, what's your take on domestic violence? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think I agree with Peter. Anything that happens within the four walls of the home is violent. But where I would want to stress more is that, you see, we've limited the scope of domestic violence to physical abuse, and we've forgotten that some neglect. I mean, people are getting neglected and rejected, and we don't, because we can't measure them. We don't define them as violence, and so that limitation makes domestic violence. I think that the scope, that limitation in the scope of the definition of domestic violence have made perpetrators, more secured in perpetrating the act, because they feel that if I can abuse it physically, but I can do it in other forms which cannot be measured or under the law, has the law doesn't have the eye to see, then I can go on to do what I'm doing. It's real, but and that is a form that I want us to bring to the fore, that what Peter is saying is true, but other forms as neglect and rejection is part of the scope that we are failing to, to accept that they are part of domestic violence.
Thank you, Nana Bing. Is the rejection and the isolation and the abandonment is not all part of that psychological violating? Is it not all part of it?
It is. It's part of the psychological violation, but you see, I can choose not to talk to you, and you would be okay. But I can choose not to talk to you, but I will, act. I'm going to exhibit some behaviors that might actually, lead you to thinking. So you are not actually, you don't have a problem with my silence, but you have a problem with the way I act in my silence. And that is what I would want to bring to the fore. Some people, I mean, most abusers, would choose to be silent and then go on to exhibit some form of behaviors that would actually make your depression and your thoughts, your thinking process go very down, because they know that if they can exhibit these acts, it gets you, deep down into your soul.
Okay. So then are we getting into mind games then? Are we getting into mind games and mind play?
Exactly.
Okay, then we're getting into mind games. Peter, can you want to say anything about the mind games and that emotional abuse?
I think what I was trying to, we can use the word, first of all, we can use the word violence or abuse. Normally, I like to use the word abuse because that captures the all the elements properly. So when you're looking at abuse, right, like Nabi said, there's financial abuse, there's psychological abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's verbal abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and all this are violent. So anybody that is going through or perpetrating any of these against the other is committing violence against that person. So, like Naveni was giving an example where somebody will not talk by their action alone will put fear into that person. In law, that's an assault. If anything that will make me fearful, that I feel threatened, comes under law, and that is a form of assault, so far as you can prove it. So that in itself is violent. We've got passive. So somebody may not talk, but their action, that passive aggressiveness. You know, they don't need to say anything for you to know that they are aggressive. The posture and the gestures towards you is violent and is threatening, and that one in itself constitutes, it comes under violence. So, like Neville said, we can pick, but so far as they come within the home, that is, somebody is actually perpetuating it with the intention to make the person feel less of themselves and to have some fear and threat within themselves and fear of violence, then they are living under a form of domestic violence. So neglect is one. If I have to give you a certain amount of resources to be able to live comfortably, and I refuse to give it because of A, B, C, D reason, the conscious decision that is going through my decision not to provide you with those so that you will suffer some form of abuse or neglect, that is where the violence is coming from. It's a mindset that leads to it. So I think people need to understand that it's not, if I don't have money and we are all living in a situation where we are all struggling and we are all living, it's not right, but nobody is perpetuating it. It is not a thought process that is against the other. But when you are having a thought process to put somebody in a position that they have not put themselves in, that is where, and to make the person's life worse than they will have made it for themselves. That is where the violence begins to come out.
That is where the violence begins to come out. I have two questions. You said something, Peter King. So, physical abuse, easy to prove. The scars are there, the marks are there. As you're a lawyer, I put it to you, Peter King. I put it to you this evening. So you're in the court of law now. How then do you prove, as you lawyers say, beyond reasonable doubt, that this person is being abused emotionally? How does a victim prove that in the court of law, or for anyone to even accept that they are being emotionally abused?
It is a very difficult one, right? And I must say I've encountered a situation where there was a lot of emotional violence or abuse towards towards the person, and it started off, for instance, this person will change the location setting on the person's phone, so the person is able, the partner is able to identify where the person is all the time without her knowledge. When they are calling the person, they shout on top of their voice, and the person panics. If certain things are not done, then she will not have certain things. She will not be allowed to go see her friend or make some phone call to their parents. And so it is difficult to actually pinpoint and have one element to seek justice. It's difficult to say that, oh, the person did not let me call my mom, so they've committed crime against me. But when you are able to pinpoint element where, if all are brought together, we can easily identify that this is calculated attempt, one is leading to the other, and at the end of the day, all put together is sufficient to put another in a position where they will not have put themselves, and that person is taking advantage or is taking advantage of that the victim's position. You can use that but it is not a very, very easy process for a prosecutor to go through. And you will find that even in the UK, prosecutors are not very keen on taking in processing abuse that will require a lot of expert witnesses in order to prove. So it's a very difficult area for people to get help, actually, and to seek justice. Difficult.
Okay, so emotional abuse is difficult for people to seek justice and to get help. Nana Bini, I'm coming to you now. Do you want to contribute something before I bring this question to you?
Sure.
Okay.
I would want to. You see, uh, what I want to clarify here is that the eyes of the law is actually making people scot free. I mean, it's allowing people to perpetuate abuse and violence in their homes because a woman can have all that she needs physically from her man, from her husband, but just someone to talk to. That's all that she needs extra. Someone she can just voice her stress to, and she's not getting that. How does the law, measure that form of neglect? Because she can't quantify. She can't say that I didn't have time with my husband. So there's no way the law is measuring this, and people are getting depressed because they don't have anybody to talk to. I have a client who she wanted me to share this. I have a client whose husband would just have a quickie with her and tell her to watch porn for her to reach orgasm because he can't get her an orgasm.
Can you repeat this one again? Repeat it again.
I have a client where the husband would just have sex with her, and
just
then
a quick sex, like
he
a
would
quickie.
come. Quickie, and then he would come and then give the wife a link to a pornographic site for the wife to watch porn for her to reach orgasm. And these are things that yes, but you see, how then how then do you, because if it's about sexual abuse, the man has had sex with her and reaching orgasm you can't say that if I don't make you get an orgasm, it means that I've abused you. But these are things that are getting people to be depressed. So the eyes of the law, I think that it's making people a little bit free emotionally in perpetuating these acts.
Nana Benying, I'm interested in this one. Okay, it's interesting because I have a similar story, but it goes years ago. They are not together again, so I don't want to share, but it's along these lines. But so Peter King, this is not just a one occurrence, Nana Benying, am I right?
Sure.
It's not just one off, so it's consistent.
No. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I want the lawyer to respond to this one.
You see, we've got civil wrong and criminal wrong.
Right.
Right. So the issue may have to be decided along the line of a crime or is a civil matter.
Right.
Right. A lot of the time, when it comes to relationship, when it comes to marriage in particular, matrimonial matters, culturally, and when I say culturally, UK, Africa, most parts of the world, matrimonial matters, unless it has breached an established law, one becomes very difficult to prosecute. Now, when I say it has breached an established law, I mean, in the case of this person, unless, if you want to get it criminalized, unless there is a proof that there was a knife, there was a gun, there was a punch to that person, it's sad, but to the head, the person's head, saying that this is what you must do. That would be the point that they will have crossed the criminal threshold. And I stand to be corrected if there's any lawyer listening. When a consenting adult is being asked to do that, and for whether it is a fear or whatever it is, but they have decided, they have not resented it, have decided to go ahead to do it, irrespective of the number of times that has happened, it's difficult for the law to come on your side, unless we can have evidence of coercion, some evidence of they've got to be some threat, coercion. Even manipulation is not enough. That I promise you, I'll buy you a car, you do this, or lies is not enough to get anybody convicted in a criminal proceedings. And when you are going to court, the prosecutor, what you got to remember is that when you're going to court, it is not me against you. It is the state against the perpetrator. So the state need to understand or be satisfied that the evidence before them is enough to convict the person, without which they will not go. And if they need to investigate, what are they going to investigate? We had sex, and after my husband put on a porn, he wanted me to watch, to have orgasm. And it is something that we've done it several times. Now I don't like it anymore. So I've called the police. I'm being simplistic and a bit sarcastic, but that is where somebody on the street, on a civil street, is going to look at it. And as a lawyer, if you bring this to me as a crime and I'm going to defend the person, and I'm looking at it, where is the crime? Where was the crime committed?
Okay, where is the crime? Sorry, Peter again, sorry to rudely interrupt you. Where is the crime committed? But if we bring it to the topic for today, domestic abuse, is there no abuse in there in this instance?
That is what I'm saying, that there is civil wrong and there is civil wrong and there is criminal wrong. Right. Domestic abuse, it happens in the process takes so long, and to the point where it actually become a crime, the person would have probably been abused for a long time.
Okay.
Right. So you hardly get a conviction at the point where a victim is being prepared to be abused.
Okay.
You had, because before victims get to the position where they get abused and they are not even able to say anything, they've been prepared, their mind had been prepared to accept the abuse and blame themselves. It's a whole process. So by the time you get to the point where it is actually a criminal offense, what you're actually going to be finding, in my experience, is that you are going to actually get the victims defending the abuser.
That is true.
Right?
That is true.
So when I go into the refuge home and we are talking, so what actually happened today to get to this position? The first thing that all the victim will say is that I did not do this and I made him angry and he hit me and he started beating me. Right from the first sentence, they are finding excuses to protect the partner. Right? So for the abusers to be convicted, we need evidence from these sufferers of abuse to actually support the prosecution, and they are not going to do it. I have countless. I mean, sometimes I return to home and I'm pulling my hair because somebody's beating blue and black. A husband had just drove to the front to just come and kneel down and say, "Forgive me," with the flower, and they will wipe their tears and jump back into the car, and you just stand there and fold their arm. We cannot do anything.
Okay.
Right. It's a lot difficult than just it being a simple crime and no crime, and the law not helping people. The law is there, but it needs a lot more than just the law. We need the sufferers to understand what it is that they are being victim of. A lot of people being abused don't even know they are being abused. Right. And I'll tell you that for free. About 85% of people in a very severe domestic abuse relationship don't even understand or know that the punch, the slap, the push, the shove is a form of an abuse. The verbal abuse, they refuse to accept it because over the years they've been prepared to believe that it is their fault that they are being abused. So if you bring in the law element, it is very, very serious problem, to the point that in the United Kingdom, I don't know, Nana, if you know about it, the law has actually changed to the point that they do not need the victim to give evidence anymore. So if I see a man pushing you and I call the police, I become the witness, not you.
Right. Okay.
So the simple reason that the victims will never put the abuser behind bars. They will always defend it because of how they've been prepared.
Okay. Aside from the fact that because of how they've been prepared, when it comes into our culture, the Afro-Caribbean culture, that is one. And the other layer is church.
Oh.
They don't want to be seen as to be blamed for the children's father. I'm going to say father because statistics says majority of the perpetrators are men. So if you bring in church, if you bring in our culture within the Afro-Caribbean community, would you say it makes it even much more difficult to address these domestic abuse issues? Nana Benin, what's your take on that?
See, the African culture, I mean, if you come to African social culture milieu, the woman is like a possession of the man. It's an asset of the man. Right. And so whatever that happens to the woman, the culture itself protects the man in doing what he does, because they feel that the woman is more like an asset. Some men would go to extent telling the wife that I married you. So once he says I married you, it means like he's actually bought you.
He's claiming
our culture system, ownership of the woman. So the culture itself, even with that in explanation, allows men, to perpetrate the act, to abuse the act. Then if you take it to the church, you see, the church doesn't support separation or divorce in any form. The church also believes that any challenge you are going through, God can solve it. I mean, if you pray, God can help you to solve it. Right. So instead of you going to tell somebody or report a man, the church will tell you to pray about it. So let's pray about it. It's going to change. Let's pray. Let's fast and pray. So Christians are actually not telling their story because no one will support them or hear them out, because they feel that if the voice is out, it's like they are neglecting the spirituality of talking to God rather than talking to men. So I think that Africans in general are becoming so religious that we are less becoming spiritual. This is because, you see, religion that being religious doesn't make you spiritual. You can be religious but you're not spiritual. And we shouldn't let the church become a definition of common sense. If you're getting abused,
can somebody tweet that or type that for me? We shouldn't let the church do. Say that again. We shouldn't let the church.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm saying that we shouldn't allow the church So I've even forgotten what I did, because I
We
said
should
that
not
of
allow the church.
the
We should not allow the church to become the definition of common sense.
Thank you, Peter King.
common
Okay.
sense. Yes, we shouldn't let it become the definition of common sense, because most of us are losing common sense because we are church members. A thing that should be done, within a twinkle of an eye. We will just want to speak to your pastor first, speak to an elder first. You want to speak to, you want to pray first. No, there are things that we need to act by common sense, because the Bible says that God will do exceedingly above everything we hope and think. The thinking process is common sense, but we are losing it up.
We are losing it. Okay,
And that is a huge gap. Yeah, it's a huge gap.
it is a huge gap. Peter King, would you like to pick on that, the Afro-Caribbean culture and the church and domestic
Yes,
abuse? What would you like to say?
that has been a huge problem, and I've been fortunate enough to deal with both in the UK, and to large extent, I'm Ghanaians that I know. In the UK, I've dealt with the Black Afro-Caribbean community and then the English community. Abuse is abuse.
Yeah.
Slap is a slap,
Mm.
right? And each of them would have suffered domestic violence, and they've had the same results. However, when it comes to the support that each of them seem to require and seem to want, is different. Some of them will run, the African Caribbeans will run into the refuge home. By the morning, they do not want anybody to know, and they're pleading that they are allowed to go back because they don't want people to know. They do not want their pastors to know. And I don't want mom to know that I have left my husband's home. There was this particular woman that I came into contact with her at least 6 times. The sixth time, I have to tell them that, look, I will call your husband and your pastor myself, and I will call your mother and your father myself to tell them that if they want your dead body, then they should be disappointed. Otherwise, you are not living. If you don't let me, so I have to move away from my professional position to actually take a personal stand, simply because of this mindset. So we do have a problem. We don't have that problem when we come to Caucasians and I would say white English family. They have different problems, and the different problem is they have nowhere to go, most of them, because they don't want to go back to their mom and dad and what have you. So if they don't want to go back to them, we need to find them somewhere to go. Africans know. So our culture is very, very difficult. Another thing is the church. They come with all kinds of biblical codes that makes it very difficult for any professional intervention to happen. So when they come to us, what we are providing is a professional service. Sorry, my internet's a bit unstable.
Okay.
What we'll be providing is a professional service. And we have to combat that with religious and biblical codes that is coming from pastors who have found out that one of their church members is in trouble and they want to come and take it home to go and resolve. An abusive person has got a psychological problem. These people lack emotional intelligence,
empathy,
to manage their emotions. And when the opportunity comes for us to be able to actually identify the problem and let them know what their problems are, and let the victim also understand how they can manage it, it comes with biblical code. So we are not able, there is a lot of interference on the part of African people or Afro-Caribbeans when we are dealing with such people. So it's a big, huge problem.
Okay, then I'll move on to my next question. What is the purpose? What is the intention of the perpetrator of the abuse? What are they trying to achieve?
Submission.
Submission. Should I
Yeah,
twist it around and say control?
control, yeah.
Control. Okay.
Control.
So it's
oh, sorry, Nabeni was going. Sorry.
yeah.
You see, I would say that everyone that abuse another person is not secure in itself. Doesn't have that kind of confidence and courage. And so they use as defensive mechanism. They transfer that fear from themselves to somebody else, so that in the victim's eyes, they see themselves as strong. Okay. Once you start abusing someone, it is like you need someone to respect you. You need someone to value you. And that has been the baseline upon which the abusers use to abuse their victims. So the core reason is that they want control, they want dominance, they want power, and they cannot get it without the abuse. Because once they abuse you, you become a victim, and then they become powerful.
Okay, so it is all about control. I have a definition here. It's a long one, but I like the word is the controlling and the coerciveness and the threatening. So it says, I got it from, I think, Women's Aid. They define domestic abuse as an incident or pattern of incidents of controlling, coercive, threatening, degrading, and violent behavior. I like this was controlling, coercing, threatening, degrading, and violent behavior. So what you're saying is the intention is to control, to make them look powerful, and to subdue the victims, to subdue the victims. Peter, can I come to you in a minute? But I want to share this story from a TikTok influencer. She's posted a lot of videos about this. She's a Ghanaian, actually. There has been a spate of rise in women who have been killed by their partners. One actually was beaten over time. Both are in Volta region. One was beaten over time, and I think he's quite a youth leader or something like that, youth organization. And the last time he hit the woman, she died. Now, so a social media influencer, okay, she did a video. And the video, she made it in the Ghanaian language, in the Twi, Akan language. So I have translated and extracted her main point. She quoted the Bible to support her views. And she quoted a verse from Proverbs. I'll paraphrase that quotation. It says, the foolish woman with her own hands destroys her home. I'm paraphrasing. So this is what this influencer is saying. It says, only foolish women are beaten by their husbands. Verbatim. Oh. Yes, verbatim is on social media. Verbatim. If you want the person, I can give it to you after this, but I know that there's this mob justice, so I don't want to put her details here. People will probably go there, and I don't want that. But if you want the details, I can give it to you after. Not the listeners know. Peter is for my guests if they want to listen to it, because I know there's mob justice and all that out there in Ghana. She said, only foolish women are beaten by their husbands, verbatim, quote unquote. And then it says, in this very situation where the lady was beaten and died, she said, if the lady had apologized during an altercation, the husband wouldn't have beaten her or pulled a knife to attack her. Verbatim. And the last point she makes is, foolish women cause their husbands to cheat. Okay? So now you have this influencer saying all these things. And I'll bet my last one, we've lost Nana Benin again. He keeps going in and out. Okay, so you've got this social media influencer. And the video, as that I checked today, it's been liked by 700 people.
Wow.
Yes, it's been liked by 700 people.
Oh,
It's on TikTok. It's been
okay.
liked by 700 people. Okay. So now, and I can assure you, it's not an isolated point of view, just her. I am sure there are a lot of people with that mindset as well. So, Peter King, with what you discussed, would you say it is the woman's fault or it is the victim's fault? Or because of their
Yeah.
foolishness, that is why they are
Right.
beaten or abused. Would you agree or disagree?
Uh, I think I'm going to try and be short, but I'm going to try and talk about the abuse process
Okay.
in a short, just so that we can all kind of understand where abuse victims get themselves, or where the abusers take victims before they continue to abuse them to that point.
Mm.
So abusers or victims, as we sit here, if I meet a woman and I slap them the first date, they're definitely not coming back. That relationship is ending, right?
Okay.
So what abusers do is they meet a woman. So I'm going to talk of a man and a woman. A man is
Mhm.
the abuser, the woman is a victim.
Okay.
A man meets a woman. What they do is they start preparing them like prey.
Mm.
They prepare them like prey. So initially, they become the best of everything.
Mhm.
They look after them, they gain their trust, they gain their confidence, and they
Mhm.
make them believe that they are going to protect them.
Mhm.
In that process, everything, the woman cannot do anything wrong,
Mhm.
right? It is after, and this process can go on for a long
Mhm.
time, years,
Yeah.
if not months to years.
Yes. Yeah.
And it is after the woman had gained their trust, they've gained their confidence, and they have been able to chip some of their confidence away. Because as
Mhm.
they do that, they are there to protect you. So around that time, they begin to chip your confidence.
Mhm.
So if you dress very nicely, they will tell you, actually, I don't like this dress. I don't like the way. They are the love of your life. You love them. They are doing everything for you. So if you say, I don't love you, I don't love this dress, change it, you're going to do it.
Mhm.
They come home, they are talking to their best friend. I'm just giving examples. Um, oh, when you get home, you've been to work all day. I want to spend quality time with you. I don't want you talking to people. What they are doing is they are cutting you off your family.
Mhm.
Uh, Wherever you want to go, I will drop you. Don't worry, I will drop
Yeah.
and pick you. So what they will start doing, they will drop you and pick you until such a time that you now depend on him to drop you. And then he'll
Yeah.
start telling you, why are you late? So by
Mhm.
that time, they've chipped your confidence away and they start shouting at you why you are late. So they'll be so nice, but at the time they are being very nice and accommodating, they are taking away your confidence. They are taking away the things that you like. And they'll also be telling you things that they don't like. Right. And all this is at the preparatory stage. So I don't like you coming home late. I don't like you doing this. I don't like you doing this. But if you open your eye, you will have seen that all the things that the guy is telling you I don't like are things that you used to like before they
Mhm.
met you.
Mhm.
But they will compensate. When they don't like you staying on WhatsApp or Facebook in the evening, they will compensate with a lot of things. So you will lose that thing you like, but he will compensate because he's showing you love. After the preparatory stage, the abuse, if it's going to be physical abuse, that is where it's going to start. But that time, you will have gained their trust. So what they are going to say to you, it will start with maybe a push. So they push you away in anger. You become shocked because he's never pushed you before. The man
Mhm.
will come with sweet words, apologies. I am so sorry. I am this, I am that. Don't forget, at that time, the victim confidence is already chipping.
Yeah.
And and they spend so much time with this person that has been preparing them to abuse them. So they become, I am sorry, I won't do this again. If you had done it, if you had called me that we are going to be late, I will not have hit you. So please, next time, call me so I don't get angry. That's why you meet the woman, they tell you, oh, I didn't call him and I go home late. That is why he got angry. He's prepared him to accept that he only get angry if he doesn't do certain things. So if that happens and they hit them, then she is to be blamed. Right? So when they hit them, they'll go back and apologize and say nice things. Some of them will follow with gifts. And the abuse will be intermittent. And each abuse will be followed with nice words. We meet women that tell you when he beats me, that is when we have the best sex. When he beats me, that's when he tells me all the sorts. So if he doesn't beat me, we cannot even sleep together. Right? Wow. We meet women that will tell you this. So over the years, what is now going to happen is that for the woman to have the best sex, she needs to be beaten. So even if the man doesn't want to, the woman has been prepared that for her to have the best sex, for her to have all the sweet words that is said to her, the man needs to come with an apology. The man must do something to them. The human psychology, the human brain, it becomes addicted to that, accustomed to that process. And that is the point that the man will stop giving reward. I will call it reward. So when you are beaten, you are rewarded with nice stuff. So when the reward stops, and a lot of the time, that is the first time that you are likely to hear that somebody is being beaten. Right. When the reward stops, when the man stops giving them the nice thing that they were giving them when they abused them, because they are finished, they're tired. You don't want them anymore. The woman has got nothing left to give. They don't get any confidence in it. They don't extract anything from abusing them. So they stop saying sorry. They stop telling them they love them. They stop giving them the same. They stop. That is when the woman begins to get agitated, because when they get beaten, they don't get the reward. And I don't know how many of us will know how many times an abusive person or a victim had moved out of the home to their friend, to their relative, and about 2-3 days, the abuser will come, speak to them, and the next time the victim has packed their things, sometimes they don't even say thank you, and they're gone, only to come back again 2-3 weeks time. It is because the abuser has come and given them their reward, and they are happy again. They've been promised their reward. They love them. Without you, I can't do anything. They've given them the confidence that they needed. They go back, and it will happen again. I mean, the story can be long, but anyone that is a victim of domestic abuse is not silly. I think it's important it gets there. Yeah. No woman will take a slap on their first date and continue to follow that man. That person get prepared to be in the position where they are, and it's a long process, and it will not be stopped by judgment telling them they are silly and they are foolish because they are allowed. No. I think it's very disappointing what I've heard.
Okay. Very disappointing what you heard, but it's out there on social media, and now you know, in the social media age, the social media influencers are kings. So I hope somebody has listened. I hope they are kings and queens. I hope somebody has listened and learned something from it. Listeners, viewers, bring your questions, any questions you're not clear of. If you have a friend or a loved one who's going through an abuse and you're pulling your hair, is like, why can't you just see? You want to shake them. Let us know your thoughts, your views, your questions, and then we can answer them as best as possible. Now, my next question is, Why do perpetrators abuse their loved ones? Why? Why do perpetrators abuse their loved ones? Why do they do it? Why?
They do them because, like I said, the abusers psychologically they lack what we call emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Right. And when I say emotional intelligence, the best way to describe it is a 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
If you take a toy from a 3-year-old child, how do they react? They throw tantrums,
yeah.
they kick, they hit, that 3-year-old lacks emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't develop that ability to vary their emotions and respond appropriately and they grow, these people grow to the age where they are not able to control their emotions and lack the intelligence to control their emotions. And they cover that up with control and violence. And the only way they can get control is through violence and fear. So the word control is key, is very important, but it is more of a defense mechanism that shield them from their inadequacies. So these people have got very low self-esteem. People that are abusive have got low, very, very low self-esteem and low confidence. So they derive their confidence from the abuse, from the victims, when they think that they have some power and control over them.
Okay.
Right. And that is where they when it gets to a point where they are not deriving those power and control because the victim have got nothing left, that is when they stop rewarding them. And then the victim becomes irritable and starts seeking reward because they are not getting anything satisfaction from the abuse. They're not boosting their confidence, they're not boosting their ego, they are not boosting their self-esteem. So they want to move on to the next victim.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And it's a process and it's dangerous. Those people are dangerous.
It is a process and it is dangerous. Nana Benyi, you want to come in with why the perpetrators abuse the person they profess to love, and they give them the earth, they give them the whole world, but yet they end up abusing them. Why do they do that?
I start by saying that you see, frustration, is one of the core that people abuse people. But it starts with every relationship. In every relationship that you invest in, you would have expectations. Anything that you put your time, your strength, your resources, your money, whatever you put into, you would expect that something would come out of it. There are people that are naturally abusive. Some people are naturally abusive, but others grow to learn to become abusive. And these are people that, when they think that they've invested their time and their resources into a relationship, and then they are not getting the expected return, they get frustrated. And that is where most of them would engage in abusive behaviors.
Would that not go back to, sorry, Nana Bing, would that not go back to the point Peter Kim made earlier? Then that is an immature way of responding to things. Then we're going back to the 3-year-old mindset again, aren't we, Nana Bing?
The line wasn't clear, so I didn't get you well.
No, what I'm saying is, if the person who has invested in a relationship is not in their mind getting back, sort of, kind of like we're getting into economics here, like return on investment, okay? And then they get frustrated and lash out. Is it not the same as that 3-year-old behavior? That is an immature way of looking at life, isn't it?
Yeah. I was coming to the point that when the frustration comes in, frustration would always exhibit itself.
Right.
Frustration would always exhibit itself. But as to how we handle that frustration is key.
Right.
And most people, because they have low.
We lost him. I think Nabeng is having problems with his
Transfer
connection
that
there.
frustration onto the victim.
Okay.
You see, people with low self-esteem and people who are not matured enough are not able to handle that frustration, and then they transfer that kind of frustration onto their victims. And so they might love you, they might be the most caring, but because they are expecting something in return and they are not getting what they are expecting, then they tend to abuse you. You see, in every relationship, one would give more than the other. In every relationship, one would give more than the other. But the point is that, sure.
So I was going to ask a question now, Benin. Isn't it the investment in what I term as the preparatory stage, where they will put in so much to gain the trust and confidence, and therefore they will put their rules and regulations in along that time, and their likes and dislike. And when you breach any of their dislike, then the reaction is coming. Are we saying the same thing, or are we saying something different?
It's a little bit different. I am coming on two platforms. The first thing I'm saying are people that grow up to become abusive, that are non-natural abusers.
Are we getting into sociopaths in here, Nana Benny? And he's frozen. Hello. He's frozen. Okay. Hello, Nana Benny. Okay, whilst his system is restarting, Peter Ken, I want to bring this question: is abuse limited
process in their families?
Oh, okay. We lost half of what you said, Nana Bean. Okay. So, Peter King, what I'm saying is abuse limited to class or status in society? Is abuse limited? Okay. I wanted to ask that question because sometimes people make it seem like, oh, if you have the working class, if you're poor, that's when. But I'm glad you clarified that. I'm conscious of time. Okay.
No, I have seen some very high profile personalities that have been that had to come into refuge home just for safety, or have called you on the phone for advice, and very high profile personalities. And especially if you live in the UK class system, is even more real. In Ghana, we have this social perspective that we want people to have of us, and that, I think I was going to come to that when we were talking about culture, and that also contributes, or this is in Ghana or Africa, that also contributes to sufferers hiding their abuse within their home. Because when it comes out, apart from the pastors and the culture, whatever, their social status, especially the women, or protection of their children and what have you, that becomes a huge consideration for them to even complain. But there's a lot of, if you are where I have sat for some time, there are a lot of high, well-educated people within Ghana that are going through a lot of abuse in the country. So class is not a factor at all.
Class is not a factor. Let me throw in another one. What about amongst the clergy? Does abuse happen among the clergy?
I think yes, and they are worse. Because they these clergies, a lot of them have got this parochial view of the Bible and the interpretation of the Bible, and that sense of ownership of a woman. And depending on the type of church and how they see women, and a lot of churches in Africa still put women at the background, a lot, both Pentecostal and Protestant churches. And that reflect in their homes. And the abuse within the clergy is a lot. But the sad thing for them is a lot of them have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Because everybody comes to their husband. They have nowhere above them to go and seek help, even if they want to go and talk. But also they are the sofumamis and they've got names, pastor's wife. Can they actually go and complain to anybody about being beaten when the pastor is seen as the god of the church? So it is a combination of things, but more so the neglect element that Nabeni was talking about comes in very, very strongly amongst clergy women or clergies. Their needs not being met and they having nowhere to go to meet those needs. It's in itself a kind of emotional abuse. Husband spend time with everybody else but them. The only time they get to meet them is probably in bed, or when they are meant to perform their conjugal matrimonial duties.
Right.
So they have nothing. They don't have anything within the relationship, within the marriage,
right,
apart from being used to satisfy the need of the partner, which in itself abuse, if they are not being beaten up. So it's a very difficult position for them.
I don't think the church can close its eyes anymore, because in 2020 we were shocked with the situation in the USA of the Ghanaian pastor who shot his wife, very young couple.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
this was a very high. Sorry?
So they hold my name.
Yes. Well, the perpetrator also has your name. So we laugh about it, but it's a very sad situation where it had to go to that point. And you mentioned something initially where you said COVID has, you've seen an increase in domestic abuse cases during the COVID lockdown period. And this Barbara and Sylvester issue, I believe it's COVID that triggered that, because the lady wanted to leave, but she seemed to be based on what I read, so I stand to be corrected. Allegedly, lady seemed to be the sole provider. So when she decided she wanted to leave, it was like a rug has been pulled from under him. He couldn't handle it, because who he is, that big and mighty person that he is all because of his wife.
Yeah.
So now if the wife is pulling the rug, so why am I saying all these things? The essence or the intention of all these programs is to be able to save even just one person. If we save one, our Christian duty is done.
Yeah.
So I always say this: don't suffer in silence. You may be a clergy. I totally understand how the clergy works. I used to be a pastor's wife. I am a preacher. Okay. So I know how it works. I know how the whole thing, it's quite, if you want to speak, it's as though you are betraying your husband's ministry.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. You are destroying the work of God. There's a call on his life and you're destroying it. But we need to balance it. Seek help. Talk to a counselor. Okay. Yeah. Because if your self-esteem is being chipped away, Some of the church members don't make it easy on the pastor's wives. They don't.
No.
They make a big dive for the pastor and they don't hide it. I'm coming for your husband, and you, as the pastor's wife, there's nothing you can say about it, because even if you breathe, you'll be labeled as destroying your husband's ministry. Okay, so this is what I'm saying to fellow clergy, male, female. At least talk to a counselor for your sanity. Yes, pray, but after you've prayed, let the Holy Spirit guide you and take steps. Talk to a counselor, seek help. And then let the prayer, the heart of the king is in the hands of God. Yes, go to touch your husband's heart. Then you can approach your husband and both of you can seek counseling outside the church. Because if you go to his boss, it is case closed and he will win the case. Because they are only looking after the well-being. It's all about the success of the church. It's not about your well-being.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this is the fact. This is the truth. Okay, so if you are clergy, if you're married to the clergy, if you're clergy yourself, you're abused, you are worn out, you're tired, I am not telling you to rush and go and seek divorce. No. I am not telling you to put your husband on social media and announce the whole world. No. Seek help. There are professional counselors out there. I'm going to speak a Christian language that you can understand me. Nicodemously. Go and see a professional counselor. And they will open your eyes to see that, look, what you're going through, if you're not careful, you will lose your mental faculty. And if there's anybody listening, you may not be married to the clergy, or you're high up in society and the culture and you feel ashamed, you don't know what to do. Don't suffer in silence. Reach out for help. Seek help. In the UK, there are so many organizations. I forgot to print some of them. In Ghana, there's DOFSU, and then the police. I understand there's a link to the police now. They will support you. So reach out for help. Talk to somebody who can support you through the process. And if nothing at all, it will help you see things clearly. If nothing at all, talking to a professional will help you see things clearly, and it will guide you in the next steps, which way you need to go. It's a shame we seem to have lost Nana Benin, because I was going to end on his story. And I don't know what's happened to him now, because he's a victim. He was abused. He was abused. He was abused. Being a man, I wanted him to share his story. Because yes, the statistics say that a lot of women, but because it is a lot of women, men who suffer abuse don't talk.
Very much so. Very much so. And I might say I've encountered a few, and the violence that they had gone through was unimaginable. We couldn't imagine it, that it was coming from a woman.
Wow.
But yes, and even in the UK, there was nowhere for them. I don't know where there will be somewhere for them in Ghana. There was nowhere for them at the time.
For the men.
Yeah, in the UK to go, a refuge home where they could go. There was absolutely nowhere for them. And I remember trying to find a place for this guy. And when you call refuge homes and you mention a man, the people there will even start laughing.
Wow.
Yeah, because they didn't think that a man should be out there looking for a place in the middle of lockdown because they've been abused by a woman. But I encountered a few. I think for Ghana, it's we abuse has got to be, people have to see it to believe. Right? Our criminal justice system don't have any time to do any forensic examination in order to determine any kind of abuse, even financial abuse. We don't even relate it to them. We don't relate any of the psychological, emotional, financial, sexual, and all verbal abuse. None of them is brought under the criminal justice system unless there's evidence, strong evidence to bring it. If you're a church person, a clergy's wife, your case is even worse because most of the time you've got absolutely nowhere to go. And if you've got a clergy that is old-fashioned and using the Bible to be abusive, it's even worse. And my encounters, a lot of them were actually using the Bible to justify the abuse. Don't know how they've understood it. I think I've been accused of not by one, many, of putting what God has put together asunder. Because I tried to, I didn't try to intervene. And I remember telling them that, no, I have not done anything. The people within the relationship have already put what God has put together asunder by beating the other. It wasn't me. They've already done that already. I'm just trying to find a place for them to live. But it was, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. For Ghana, I feel sorry. I feel sorry. I do have clients there that were voluntary clients that you help, and there's absolutely nothing for anyone. Absolutely nothing. Or that, not that I know of. I mean, apart from the police. And one thing that I just want, I don't know whether we're going to continue with, but one thing that I want to say for a fact, that if, and I call it privilege, if you are privileged enough for anybody to come to you to report that they are being abused, please, 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 if you are listening to me, it is not a time to judge that person. It is not the time to even judge their abuser. It is a time to just provide a person with audience. Just listen to them. They have come with a story. Listen to them. Let them talk. You just listen. Don't even provide them with any advice because they know exactly what they want. At the first opportunity, all you have to do is listen, listen, and listen. And let the person feel that they have had somebody to talk to and they've been listened and they've not been judged. If you miss that opportunity, that person may never come back to you. If you judge their husband or their abuser and they go and make up, they are never coming back to you. If you judge that person, they're never coming back to you. But if you want to help them, at the first opportunity, all you've got to do is please listen to them. And if you want to do anything at all for that victim, if you want to do anything at all I will ask is ask them what they want you to do for them. That's all I will ask. What do you want me to do for you? Is there anything you want me to do for you? And you help them to facilitate the kind of help that they want from you. Otherwise, all you got to do is be there, be present. That's one. Be present and prepare to listen. And it is also important that listening means that you can be silent. The two of you can just be silent and sit there. Be present till the person is prepared to talk. That's all I can say from as a way of managing crisis in abusive, when you find somebody who has come to you for the first time to talk about abuse. That is all I will say they need at that point.
Okay, so, all right. Yeah, Peter King, thank you so much. We've already done an hour and 15 minutes. We
Yep.
have discussed a lot, so I will end with these pointers. Abuse victims are not foolish.
No.
Abuse victims, when they have the courage and the confidence to come to you, just listen to them, be present, give them audience. I would like to apologize on behalf of Nana Benin. He's had a few technical hitches, but so I think what's going to happen is, Peter, if it's okay with you, organize another session where Nana Benin will share his story, but I want to dovetail teenage sexual abuse and all that. I want to add that to that, and that again tie that in with the law. So we sort of wrap up on this one, and then we bring underage sex on top of that. So listeners, thank you so much. Peter King, thank you so much. Nana Benin, I hope you are watching us. Thank you so much. I know you struggle. This is the second time. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Peter King. I want you to say one final word in 1 second. One final word. 1 second. 1 second. One final word.
Abuse is real,
Mm-hmm.
but there are people out there.
Mm-hmm.
Seek help. Please don't suffer in silence. Nobody have got a right to abuse the other. They may have a reason to abuse you, but they have no right to abuse you. Nobody in this world have a right. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And please don't go off. We will talk once I log off. So don't switch off. But thank you, listeners. Nobody has the right to abuse you. Don't suffer in silence. Don't let culture or anything dictate your sanity or your safety. Take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful week, and we'll come your way maybe in a week or two. Thank you so much for listening. God bless. Bye-bye.